John chapter 18, verses 12 to 14 and 19 to 24. So the soldiers, their officer, and the Jewish police arrested Jesus and bound him. First they took him to Annas, who was the father-in-law of Caiaphas, the high priest that year. Caiaphas was the one who had advised the Jews that it was better to have one person die for the people.
Peter denies Jesus. Simon Peter and another disciple followed Jesus. Since that disciple was known to the high priest, he went with Jesus into the courtyard of the high priest, but Peter was standing outside at the gate. So the other disciple, who was known to the high priest, went out, spoke to the woman who guarded the gate, and brought Peter in. The woman said to Peter, "You are not also one of this man's disciples, are you?" He said, "I am not." Now the slaves and the police had made a charcoal fire because it was cold, and they were standing around it, warming themselves. Peter also was standing with them and warming himself.
Then the high priest questioned Jesus about his disciples and about his teaching. Jesus answered, "I have spoken openly to the world. I've always taught in the synagogues and in the temple, where all the Jews come together. I have said nothing in secret. Why do you ask me? Ask those who heard what I said to them. They know what I said." When he had said this, one of the police standing nearby struck Jesus on the face, saying, "Is that how you answer the high priest?" Jesus answered, "If I've spoken wrongly, testify to the wrong. But if I've spoken rightly, why do you strike me?" Then Annas sent him bound to Caiaphas, the high priest.
Now Simon Peter was standing and warming himself, and they asked him, "You're not also one of these disciples, are you?" He denied it and said, "I am not." One of the slaves of the high priest, a relative of the man whose ear Peter had cut off, asked, "Did I not see you in the garden with him?" Again Peter denied it, and at that moment the cock crowed.
It's an odd passage. It's kind of a bit passage in the run-up to what's going to happen. But it's interesting that it's the father-in-law of the high priest who's doing the questioning. I don't know whether that has particular significance. It's not the high priest, it's the father-in-law who's questioning him.
Yeah. And did you know that the name Annas, is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah.
Annas? Well, did you know that the name means clemency or merciful?
Oh, right.
Yeah.
And Caiaphas has advised that the Jews that it's better to have one person die for the people, presumably to try to avoid a riot, because Jesus has just kind of come into Jerusalem with the big crowds of Palm Sunday. So my guess is that everyone's a bit on edge, but yeah, it's an odd thing to say.
Well, yeah, and it makes you, he obviously didn't know how prophetic that little line was, and it makes me wonder. I wonder whether he came to change his ways before he died. I wonder whether he started following Jesus before he died, whether in secretly or openly. I mean, that's just a wonder. You never know.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk. I mean, I guess anyway, there's a lot of talk about Messiah and so forth going on in Jerusalem at that time. And presumably, if he is a priest, then he knew the scriptures and the prophecies that we now associate with Jesus.
Yeah.
So maybe that was in the back of his mind.
I always like to think of this as though I'm watching from the outside. I feel as though I'm part of it, and your heart goes out to Peter. Well, mine does, because I know there's been times when I've had opportunities to actually say something about Jesus, or tell somebody, you know, that I believe in him, and I haven't done it. And so for me, that's, I can really identify with Peter on that one. I don't know.
Yeah, pretty similar, really, because, you know, there's lots of times when we're out, you know, with Besom, with the charity, that we get the opportunity to pray for people, and for some reason we don't take it. Or, you know, they ask, why are you doing this? And, you know, we could talk about Jesus, but actually sometimes we do, but sometimes it doesn't seem appropriate, or we think it doesn't seem appropriate. So we sort of don't do it. And then afterwards you wish, oh, why didn't I?
Yeah.
Why didn't I do that?
Yeah. And then when he's actually denied Jesus once, and I imagine him sort of hiding, trying to keep warm near the fire, but hiding himself and hoping that nobody's going to ask him again. And of course they do twice. And again, twice he says no, and then the cock crows, which is what he was told would happen, that he said never would. And again, you sort of feel for Peter. But I do think the other thing in this, because we've got the all the rest of the gospel, and we know what happens because we've got that hindsight. There's also a great hope in this, in that if Peter can really, you know, deny the person he's been with for several years, and he can deny knowing him, but we know that he goes on to become the rock of the church, then actually there's hope in it, I feel, for all of us. And, you know, that we can come back from this and do really what Jesus wants us to do.
We were always forgiven, aren't we?
Yeah.
When we come back to Jesus, then, you know, and seek forgiveness, then he does forgive us.
Yeah.
But I still keep on making the same, I feel, mistake.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, again, because we know what's coming on this Good Friday, it makes it all the worse that sort of Peter is denying him. But then if I was there, would I have been any different? I really don't know.
Probably not. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do remember one, this point in the Passion of the Christ, when Peter denies him the third time and the cock crows, Peter looks through the crowd and straight into Jesus's eyes, and Jesus is looking straight at him, as if to say, there you go.
Yeah. I said you would, and you did.
Yeah. And you know, we do know that towards the end, Peter is forgiven by Jesus.
That's the hope for me, that, you know,
me too.
We can all do that, but it also can make a huge difference in our lives if we try and take those opportunities. Which Peter did afterwards.
It's interesting that they then kind of start shouting accusations at Jesus, and the first thing that they seem to do is ask him about his disciples and teaching. It doesn't say how they asked or what they asked. It's just they asked him about his disciples and teaching.
Well, yeah, I mean, you know, he wants to sort of say in front of everybody who are you? You're guilty, and who are you with? And all your friends are guilty. But it's interesting that that Jesus doesn't actually implicate any of his disciples at all. You know, he's asked about them, and he doesn't say, well, yeah, actually, it's not me. It's you know, it's that Peter bloke and this other bloke. He doesn't say anything like that. He just is quiet about who his disciples are. And you know, and the high priest is out of order anyway, because apparently I found out that there's something like the I don't know, a protection thing, that it was against Jewish law to ask the accused something that would, you know, implement them, sort of thing. So they weren't allowed to do that. So straight away, it's an illegal caught straight away.
I think one of the things that struck me, knowing the passages that are coming at Easter, but also from Palm Sunday, Jesus throughout everything, and by this time he's had the triumphal entry to Jerusalem. He's been praying in Gethsemane. We've had the incident with the ear being cut off, and he's been kind of bound and beaten and who knows what all else. But every passage that you read about Jesus is he's calm. So he enters Jerusalem silently. Everybody else is going nuts and throwing cloaks on the ground and cutting palm trees down and all kinds of things. And he just kind of rides in and then gets a bit angry with the money traders. But then the kind of the Garden of Gethsemane, he tells Peter off for getting angry and heals the priest's servant, the soldier who gets the ear cut off. And here again, he's just going, well, I was in the temple and you could see me. It's not like I was hiding in a cave somewhere. I'm in the synagogue because I'm just talking to people. You know who I was with. You know who was there, and there were thousands of them. Talk to them.
Yeah, and he says, there was I haven't got any secret doctrine or any secret teaching that's going to be revealed through interrogation. You're not going to get anything out of me that I've not already said. Do you know what I mean? So he sort of says that. He says he talks about being truthful.
Yeah.
It's like it shows up. He shows up their hypocrisy, doesn't he? He shows people hypocrisy and says we just need to be truthful. He says, I've told the truth. I haven't done anything.
Yeah, I have said nothing in secret.
Yeah.
Why'd you ask me? Ask people who heard. And then
why do you ask me? He's not being uncooperative, is he? He's just sort of saying, why do you ask me? Yeah. And when they ask him why he's bound, he's tied, what are they so scared of? Why are they scared of the truth? Or what are they jealous of? It's like you say, there must have been some people in that room as well that thought, what's going on here? This man is the Messiah.
Yeah. Well, we'll see that in the next thing where he's taken to the high priest. Somebody tears their robe somewhere. I can't remember. That's probably in a different gospel. But somebody tears their clothes and says, "We don't need to hear anymore. He's blasphemed." But where's the blasphemy? He's basically saying, "Well, look, I've said everything openly. You've heard me talk about my Father. You've heard me talk about the Messiah. You've heard me talk about all these things. Why now? What's the issue?" And then the kind of policeman slaps him in the face, and it's like, so why are you talking like that? So what's he supposed to say? What has he said that is so desperately wrong? How dare you speak to the high priest by answering his questions?
I know. completely just awful. And that made me think, I wonder how Jesus felt. We know how he felt in the Garden of Gethsemane. He must have just felt so, it would have been really scary and really horrible and really like, why are you hitting me?
Yeah.
Just like, the human side of Jesus must have been that must have been so hard to be accused of nothing and then being hit for it,
And there's the kind of it just reminded me of somebody with an unjust argument where they're literally just getting angrier and angrier and angrier. They're not listening to a word that Jesus is saying.
Yeah,
they're just getting angrier and angrier.
Yeah, and Jesus
standing there going, "Whoa, hang on! let's just talk about this." Yeah. And they're just getting angrier and angrier. You can just see Anas's face getting redder and redder, and he's wife
it's
sat
like,
beside him going, he's going to have a coronary, he's going to die.
yeah. But Jesus just stands firm as well. He stands firm in like what he said on the Sermon on the Mount. If someone hits you, turn the other cheek. Jesus didn't start trying to, spit in his face or try and, get out of his ties to have a fight with him. He turned the other cheek. He stood in truth. He stood with what his teaching was. He didn't, he didn't waver. He was just, he is the way, the truth, and the life. What he said, and this is him showing that. He stands firm in who he is. He stands firm in his teaching, and he says to them, whatever, by interrogating me, by hitting me, you can't change the truth.
Yeah. It strikes me that right at the end, it says, then Annas sent him bound to Caiaphas, the high priest. And it's like, this man has not run. You walked into the Garden of Gethsemane, where presumably he could see the troops coming. He had a friend with a sword. He could have had it away on his toes. He could have been somewhere else, but he wasn't. You grabbed him, you brought him into the city, and brought him before this man, and he didn't run. And he's shown no signs of running. Yeah. And yet you bind him.
Yeah. It says in Romans, they knew the truth, but they loved their error. They saw the light, but they loved darkness.
Yeah. They knew what they were going to do when they brought him in. They were going to try and get him to say something that they could point at and go, look, he said this. When all he says is, well, everybody saw me, you know what I said. There's nothing there to convict him. There's nothing there, but they know that they have convicted him.
Yeah, and they've convicted him. They've bound him like he's some dangerous criminal, and they just want him gone. And it just, I don't know, it's like Jesus touches us, doesn't he? And it's like once you've seen that light, there's no getting away from it. It's painful, and it's horrible to think of that happening, but it's also there's also hope in there of standing firm in faith and being honest and following the truth and following the light of the world, knowing that Jesus stands completely firm in what he says, and he doesn't ever waver.
Yeah, absolutely. He doesn't ever waver. And even as we move on to the next passage in the coming hours and days of talking to Pilate, again, he's just calm. He's just stands his ground and lets the accusers condemn themselves.
He's righteous, is full of peace, is quiet. So
and that's a good place to stop, isn't it? So
it is a good place to stop. I'm sure we could carry on talking about this for ages, Simon.
I'm sure we could
some other time.
Yeah.